What up, guys? James from Bolt Bros here. Back to school for the Chargers. Love seeing the players back. But let's talk a little bit about the interviews with Jim Harbaugh, Ben Herbert, and Hayden Hurst, and just kind of what nuggets we could get out of that and what the expectations will be for this team going into 2024. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Bolt Bros, let's go. Bolt Bros! Once again, guys, appreciate all the support and love. Hit the like button in this video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you've not. We will give you as much Chargers content as we possibly can daily throughout the week and such. So appreciate all the support and love, guys. But once again, guys, it's exciting times. It still seems so real, so surreal, let me say that correctly, that this guy is our head coach, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, it's weird to be able to see that and to see a guy that is a highly established, high-level head coach. Still doesn't make sense that he is our head coach. So very excited to be able to have him as our head coach and just the philosophy he's bringing in, guys. You know, per the interview that he gave us yesterday, you know, he's jacked. He also said he's locked, cocked, and ready to rock too. So this is exciting times, guys. And I love listening to Jim Harbaugh, and having such an extended interview with him too was phenomenal. Really, I think the media really enjoys to be able to hear from Jim Harbaugh and just what he does and just understand how he ticks and how he talks. I love seeing that, guys. And it was almost a 30-minute interview with this guy. I love it. It's great to be able to see. So once again, we are going into the OTAs. It is a voluntary OTA. This is just phase one of the OTAs. You don't have to be there. It's voluntary, but the big part of it is they're putting in the systems for the teams. They are teaching the players what system they are going to run, from the offense to the defense and how everything operates. The one thing I love about this interview too is that Jim Harbaugh talked a lot about just kind of going and flowing in between, you know, they're working out in the gym to the defensive side is having their meeting over here. Jim Harbaugh gets involved and wants to be a part of it. Same thing for the offense. They're working out or whatnot, and then Jim Harbaugh gets involved with the offensive meetings. He wants to be a part of it. I even want to say that they even talked a little bit about Jim Harbaugh actually, you know, talking about being a receiver and how he wants the players to be able to run their routes and such too. It's really kind of weird. We'll talk about that a little bit later on with the Hayden Hurst interview. But the big thing about it is that he really emphasized a lot about Ben Herbert and how he's going to figure out these players. Really cool philosophy that Ben Herbert has, which we'll talk about a lot. But bottom line, Ben Herbert's job is to be able to make players that have injuries, which pretty much every single one of them has, and make them better. Like he even alluded to talk about soft tissue issues that you got to work through with a player like, say, Kristen Fulton. Man, how many times did we hear last year with Brandon Staley, how many soft tissue issues we had? I mean, this is like music to my ears. Wow, we're actually going to find a way to be able to not make these issues happen. Holy smokes, guys. I mean, as Chargers fans, you know how often we hear about injuries and how long guys end up staying out because of injuries. It's so frustrating to watch, but it's exciting. Jim Harbaugh is a guy that's very much hands off on a lot of different things. And I love seeing that. He's trusting that Ben Herbert's going to be able to do it. He trusts that Greg Roman's going to be that guy. He trusts that Jesse Minter is going to do his job. Bottom line, that's great. And we do have one of the biggest staffs in the NFL. But basically, he wants to build a staff that he can trust first off. And then also he has a system in place for the next defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, or whomever it is, coordinator, that he's expecting these guys like Jesse Minter or Greg Roman, just to give examples, that might move on to go as head coaches. And he talked about that. And I love to be able to hear that. Now, I remember Brandon Staley talking very heavily about that too, that he wanted to find guys that, you know, expecting that will move on to head coaching jobs. I don't think we ever had one guy from our staff with Brandon Staley that moved on to be a head coach. But I feel with this guy, Jim Harbaugh, he's going to create a winning culture, a culture that a lot of teams are going to look after as head coach candidates. So there's going to be a lot of movement all around, but he has built a staff to make sure that we keep a system in place and a mentality in place when they move on for a head coach position. So very, very cool. One thing he did talk about is focus on players to get them right to play physical and be strong. That is something that I think that Ben Herbert will basically do quite a bit, but at the same side, there's a big mentality that's got to get involved in this team. And I think that's one thing he alluded a lot to on day one. Be physical, be strong, be mentally strong, even bigger. I mean, that's a big thing in my opinion for this team. For a long period of time, we did a lot of mental mistakes all the time. I mean, you could go to last year and just see how many mental mistakes we made at the wrong time. This is one thing that Jim Harbaugh will not allow. And I love to be able to see this happen. Did get asked about position groups like cornerback, wide receiver. Obviously, those are areas of need. He didn't really talk too much on it, other than the fact that, that's the first time really getting to know everybody. First day of school, guys. You're trying to just feel people out, kind of figure out everybody. You can't really figure out everything in day one, right? I think he even talked about that stop winning fights and boxing matches in the first round. I think that's one of his mantras. Maybe I kind of butchered that a little bit, but give or take, it's going to take time to figure out how to be able to get the right squad in place. It's going to take time to be able to get those victories, right? You don't win the game in first quarter, correct? You win the game in the fourth quarter, right? So it's going to take time for him to figure out how and who and where they might draft later on or even fill with free agency and such. Also was asked on if the Chargers had questions or conversations about the fifth pick and if there's been any trades or anything like that. He basically just said, hey, you guys are probably going to end up chatting with Joe Ortiz at some time. That's a question for him, not for me. And I love seeing that. He is once again putting in trust in Joe Ortiz that he is doing his job. This is his offseason. This is his Batman right now. Joe Ortiz is Batman. This guy is Robin, Jim Harbaugh. So once again, that's his job. I love seeing this, guys. This is a coach that understands how to be a head coach. It's not just, I want to be everything in this room. I want to have control of everything. No, he is just being a head coach. He is being a guy that is going into the offensive rooms, talking about their scheme, talking about how to do things. Defensive side, how basically that defense is working under Jesse Minter, putting his points in there, having his hands on everything, but not controlling everything. I love seeing that. Trust your employees. And that is one thing that Jim Harbaugh does right now. So really cool to be able to see. Now, moving on to talk about Ben Herbert. Gosh, man, this guy is a ball of testosterone. I love seeing this guy out there. This is the X factor hire for the Chargers. He even talked about one thing in the interview, that it was like a 30-second conversation with Jim Harbaugh about him going to the Chargers and kind of what he wanted to do with Ben Herbert. Basically, he said, hey, I talked with my wife for about 5 to 7 minutes. It was like almost a no-brainer for us to move out to LA to be a part of this team. Bottom line, one thing I love about Ben Herbert is that he understands Jim Harbaugh and kind of what he wants as a coach. He has been with him for, I think it's 7 or 8 years now, I believe. So when he was with Michigan, the relationship is absolutely there with these guys. And it is absolutely key for this team, the Los Angeles Chargers, to get this team right on the injury spectrum. One thing that I love to be able to hear about this guy is he's got 3 different things that he chatted about. He said, 1, goal is to make you harder to break. Now, it's a bend, don't break kind of situation here. How many times have we had seasons where we've had so many injuries all around that just last forever, and we can never have a healthy squad all around? It's a very long time, guys. This has been a factor for this team for such a long period of time, and I really feel that Ben Herbert will be that guy that will get this team right. Make sure that they focus on muscle groups and areas of the body like the hamstrings, ankles, soft tissue type things, the neck, to be able to kind of not be an issue with concussions. This guy knows what he's doing. I mean, it's really cool what he talked about, where he used technology all around, talking about how he finds the flexibility points in, say, your neck, or flexibility points to your legs, flexibility to your hips, finds those areas that he wants to be able to get these metrics that he has to be able to have body flexibility in areas that you've had issues with. He wants to strengthen them. Guys, once again, resolve the issue. Don't just band-aid it. Don't do any of that kind of stuff. Resolve the issue and make it stronger. That's the biggest part of this game, guys. If I did even kind of just do a quick research just on Michigan last year and the amount of injuries they had, it was pretty low, guys. I mean, not to say they didn't have injuries or anything like that, but in the interview, I also talked about that and had a question. He said, hey, look, How many injuries have I had last year? Well, we had 140 something players or whatnot. It's a huge squad, whatnot. Hey, we always had the guys that were our starters on field playing for us. And that's what matters, right? Now, once again, he did kind of go back to some of the injuries. There's some smaller players that did end up having some injuries, broken ankles, blown out knees and such. That happens. But at the same side, he made sure the core-based players were always going to be on field. And the guys that worked the hardest in that weight room and with the strength and conditioning coach, Ben Herbert, they stayed on field all around. So big thing is about finding a way to recover from these injuries. I mean, Roman Wilson was one guy that ended up going out of a game a couple times. JJ McCarthy is such too. But what did they do? They still found a way to be able to be on the field next week. It's about trying to prevent these injuries by strengthening your past injuries or strengthening your body so it has more flexibility all around, can take a little bit more beating, because guarantee we're going to take a lot of beating and a lot of hits and a lot of, potential injury-based type hits, and make your body stronger all around. That is huge, guys. One thing that Ben Herbert talked about is mental focus, mental stability all around. Strengthen your mental focus. I already chatted a little bit about this. We got so many times where we basically have done some mental issues, mental, mistakes all around, and then it ends up throwing the game off for you guys. You end up going into a losing situation with the game. You can't let your mental focus get away from you. And that's one thing he's going to strengthen quite a bit. He talked about some weird things about some like plates and like, kind of like lining up plates and stuff. I kind of really couldn't follow exactly what he said. I'm not in that locker room by any means, so I don't know as an example, but he did bring up something. He says, hey, if something goes wrong, like my tire goes out of my car or whatnot, I don't panic. I just resolve it and move on from that point. Bottom line, it is a tough thing when you get past these mental mistakes and to not let it sit there and linger within your head. Chargers fans, we all know there's been a lot of times where we find ways to screw up games, right? It's about being mentally strong, not letting your mistakes be an issue. I've always said in the past, like you make a mistake, end up going out there and make it better, basically. That's all it really is. That's something I've always thought a lot about. And I think that's really what Ben Herbert's mantra is. Make a mistake, make it better next time. That's all it is, and move on from that point. One other point that he said too is the number 3. He says bigger, faster, stronger. He talked about KPIs. That's kind of a metric that a lot of sales companies use. It's key performance indicators. Using technology to make your body flexibility better, areas that could get better and stronger. He also talked about some of that fat slows you down kind of thing, something or other like that. There's a lot of things about trying to find a way to prevent injuries, but to decrease the likelihood of it happening. One thing he talked about was the neck muscles. There's a lot of concussions, and we've had a lot of concussions on this team. It's about strengthening the strengthening the neck muscles to be able to not get a concussion. That's something that he will be working on a lot of players on our team all around. He bottom line wants players to get stronger and harder to break all around. I love to see that, guys. I mean, this is what you need to hear from a guy like this. And I feel like this is the first time, and I remember even watching a little bit on the live stream, people were like, wow, first time I've ever sat here and wanted to hear from the strength and conditioning coach. Chargers fan, we know this has been an issue for us. And I really feel Ben Herbert, his school of Ben Herbert on being a strength and conditioning coach is going to be top tier, guys. I mean, he is the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in the NFL from what I saw. This guy is going to be an absolute X factor for this team, and I am excited about it. One thing he did talk about was the shop vac story. Apparently, they saw the locker room and they said, hey, they don't like it. Ben Herbert told Jim Harbaugh, hey, we got to go to Home Depot and go get a shop vac. They ended up going to the shop vac, clean up the whole place. He basically talked a little bit about with the locker room, it's got to just have a specific, look to it. It's got to have a specific feel to it. It's got to have this cleanliness that I think that he really wants. And he's setting a standard within this team in his realm. This is his realm in the locker room. Conditioning players, that's his realm. He wants to set a standard there. Maybe that place was an absolute mess and nobody ever cleaned it up. He just wants to be able to have it as a good feeling place that he could go to that is not going to be an issue of cleanliness and also, possibly just setting a standard all around. We're going to have a top tier type locker room and he's going to make sure it looks top tier. So That's a beautiful thing all around. So love to be able to hear that. This guy is an absolute fireball for this team, absolute lightning in a bottle. And I love seeing Ben Herbert on this team. So moving on, Hayden Hurst. With Hayden Hurst, there's a lot of issues that he's had in the past with some, concussions and such. He even talked about it in his interview. He said, hey, look, they set me out. Time I was with the Panthers, we were 2-14 or whatever it was. It didn't even matter for me to even come back at that point. The season was over with. And so he basically just said, hey, like, front office told me not to play. So it wasn't really that. I mean, he's like, I had multiple checkups on my concussion and stuff. I was cleared to play, but it was just more just, hey, the season was over with. That's what it was. That's what it is. Now, once again, you're going to have Ben Herbert on this guy. If Ben Herbert's philosophy works, there's a lot of guys on our team that have a lot of injury issues that are only going to get better now, guys. So expect some of these signings like this Christian Fulton, who's had a lot of injury issues, even to say like, Joey Bosa, say, Hayden Hurst, for instance. These guys might have phenomenal seasons and just be the healthiest they've ever had as a football player. So keep an eye out on that, guys. Keep an eye on that. But one thing Hayden Hurst talked about, he said, hey, look, the reason why I came here is because of Joe Ortiz, Greg Roman, and Andy Bischoff. He said, these are the guys that I want to play with. Some of my best times were being with the Ravens. This is what it is. And I wanted to come here because of them. And this is a perfect example why the players will come here. This head coaching staff, this whole staff that's on here is going to lead people to be here. And more winning that we do, the more free agents will come here and want to sign here because they know this is going to be a highly competitive team, a team that will get to the Super Bowl and win them. So talked about his time with the Ravens also too. He played there. He said, hey, the environment there was a family environment, meaning as in every player plays for the team and for each other versus like kind of, if you say last year, there's a level of, I was here to, I got my boys club, my guys that Brandon Staley loved, and I'm going to focus on those guys. No, it's about playing a team environment, guys. It's about playing for each other. It's about making each other better. It's about basically, winning the game together as one. It's not about one or two guys making it happen. It's about everybody. And that's the big thing. Hayden Hurst talked a lot about it. And once again, the mantra that Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh have put in there is fast, physical, and tough. And bottom line, that's exactly what Hayden Hurst is saying that he's going to bring here too. This whole thing is that everybody is on the field, is there to make an impact for the team to win all around. Love seeing this, guys. This is exactly what you want to hear. I remember Sean Merriman talked a little bit about in the 2000s what made those teams tick, bottom line. And it was really about everybody played for each other. And it's a Marty Schottenheimer kind of idea, I believe, that we're on the field, all 11 guys on both sides that are starting, or whoever rotates in, you're playing for each other as a family environment to be able to win and make each other better all around. So I love to hear that. I mean, this is only day one for these guys, and it's exciting to be able to see what this team can be all around. Did talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, differences between them. He said pretty much the same coach. I mean, the same kind of guys, just absolute fireballs out there. Just lightning in a bottle, guys that will go out there and motivate everybody and make everybody better. And he did talk a little bit about Hayden Hurst. Talk about they'll be showing players how to run routes. Jim Harbaugh was out there, I guess, apparently in the offensive team showing people how to run routes. Hilarious to be able to hear that. But big thing I just want to point out with Hayden Hurst and what I loved hearing is the run game will be massive with this team with Greg Roman. Absolutely massive. And he knows when you got a guy like a guy like Herbert, when you got Herbert out there, he's going to get his throws all around. Justin will get his throws, bottom line. He will be able to have an open, wide receiving core. Guys will be completely ready for him. But that run game will set up his pass game, and he will get his throws for sure. And it's going to be massive to watch that. Justin Herbert could sling the ball around, right? It's about getting him a run game so he could support him to make sure that he could get the best looks for his wide receivers. So it's not about him and have him carry this dang team on his shoulders anymore. It's about an entire team all around. So bottom line, big, fast, physical is the mantra to this team. And it is exciting to be able to see what day one has already brought out. Now, I'm expecting a lot more interviews coming up soon, but we will see a lot more information leaking out with this team and such too. But guys, I love seeing what this team could do so far and what we're hearing from this team. This is such a new era of the Chargers that I am so excited about seeing. I'm excited about Jim Harbaugh and what he's bringing to this team. I'm excited about, Ben Herbert, Hayden Hurst, all these guys that are bringing this team. And it's such an amazing time as a Chargers fan. And I cannot wait to see how this team continuously keeps growing. So once again, guys, appreciate your support and love. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you've not. Throw some comments in below. Love to be able to hear from you guys. And once again, want to hear from you. So let me know what you guys thought about these interviews too. And we expect more interviews to come around. So once again, guys, James from Bull Pros. Let's go.